Hello, I'm Mike Sanborn, and I'd like to share some thoughts about conflict within organizations. So, first off, being a science guy, I really got to identify what we're talking about. So many times people talk about conflict resolution, but I've seen quite impractical. You will never totally resolve conflict. So sometimes we call it conflict management, conflict negotiations, conflict mitigation. We get all kinds of terms for it. But conflict typically is described as a serious disagreement or argument. And I have found that it always exists, but when it comes to the manager or leader's attention and it hurts the organization, that's when they'll get involved. Okay? So when you think about it, our society actually encourages conflict. We have it in regular competitions. We call it friendly competition, or healthy competitions, sporting events. Then there's the allegiance to the home team, which makes the competing teams the enemies. We have competitions within organizations, sales departments, manufacturing departments. Sometimes we look at individual productivity to try to get one person to outdo the other. Sometimes it's whole departments we're working on to try to outdo the others. And of course, there's the age-old sibling rivalry. So what's the realistic goal if you want to do to help control the conflict? If it's a mild conflict, maybe you can leave it alone. But when it gets to be intense, then maybe you certainly need to do something about it, or maybe somewhere in between on that spectrum of intensity there. And do your research before you decide what to do with the conflict. How and why did this come to your attention to begin with? Who's involved? Who are the primary actors? Who are the secondary actors? The people on the sidelines maybe influencing what the primary actors. Are there other conflicts going on underlying this? What is the conflict within the organization? Is it internal influences, external influence, or something undisclosed, perhaps some personal vendettas going on? And what is the history of the conflict? Has there been any previous managerial involvement? Has there been a previous agreement that's been broken? And what previously is the management just disregarded it, and now it's a recurring problem? Maybe they were hoping it was going to resolve itself, but instead it's been festering, and now it's at a boiling point. Okay, interview the primary participants before you get too involved here. So interview them separately, find a neutral place that people feel safe and a good time to do that. Most comfortable for the participant. You don't necessarily have to be comfortable. Certainly don't use your office. Define the conflict from each other's perspective. Use good communication skills. Listen, be non-judgmental, remain neutral. And there's a link to a previous presentation I've made on communication that would probably help you with this. So do some additional research after you've interviewed the people involved. Are there legal implications? Are there criminal activities going on, civil activities? What's the organizational policy? Does the organization have any rules governing the behavior, what's going on? Are there any agreements with the union and the collective bargaining agreement? Is past practice still applicable? Times change, leaders change, employees change. Are there cultural influences? So the people's cultural backgrounds. Maybe somebody got insulted and then maybe it was unintentional. So it's got to do some learning and understanding. So what are your resources available and are they applicable? And what are you looking for an outcome in this conflict? Remember, total resolution is probably an impractical outcome. So now get prepared to bring everybody together. Break down the conflict into segments. So identify possible areas in which everybody can agree on and identify areas that need to work. Identify measurable indicators. So how are you going to know when you've reached satisfactory levels here? So remain aware that there's seldom a simple or perfect solution. There won't be resolution. There'll be some sort of compromise, some sort of tolerance, but watch out for subversion. You don't want somebody just to be quiet and go away and sit down and deal with it. You got to put up with it because it's only going to keep boiling and sooner or later it's going to erupt again. Okay. Now bring the parties together. A neutral, comfortable place. Review the norms. What are the rules to talking about? Don't let the other person talk. Don't talk out of turn. respectful language, of course, and all that. So each participant states his or her position while the others listen. Find get people to agree, solidify the areas where they agree on, and then clearly find what they disagree on. So brainstorm possible compromises, possible operational changes within your organization. Some different paths of communication might help. There's a whole host of things that might help resolve or at least mitigate the conflict. So then develop action plans, but make sure everybody has something to do and everybody has an equal workload to do it. It shouldn't all lie on one person. So, and also identify the indicators so everybody knows when you're making progress, and then schedule a follow-up meeting. And before the next meeting now, review the reasons the conflict came to your attention, monitor what's going on, check in separately with each of the participants, and note the progress on the measurable indicators. And then in the follow-up meeting, is there a resolution? That would be great. Everybody be happy. What remains to be done? Revise the plans of action as necessary. Consider that maybe you need to involve somebody else in doing some mediation here if you're not making any progress. And is it within the authority of your level of management? Maybe if you're trying to make some organizational changes for resolutions, you need to go higher up. So whatever, make sure you make those referrals. And then continue to monitor. Even if you think everybody's happy and they're gone their separate ways, keep an eye out for it. So establish how often you're going to check in, daily, weekly, monthly, annually, whatever you think might work. Identify the indicators to be measured and revise them as necessary. So we want the ideal, so what would resolution actually look like, and are we moving towards that? Maybe we do have reached a point when we can make closure and establish some preventive strategies, but I still recommend occasional monitoring. Always leave communications open. Develop a new plan for any reemergence of the conflict. Displaced conflict arises in another form sometimes, so be aware of that. And cultivate the relationships. Remember, relationships in any organization, whether it's your family or whether it's your work people you work with, the relationships are the most important things. So, great. If everybody's resolved, let's do some celebration. If you'd like to contact me, I'm very open to any feedback or any questions or any way I can help you. So here's all my contact information. I hope this helped. And check out my YouTube channel. I have several other things in there that might help you.